Hey guys, so I wanted to make this stream because I realized we have a person in my videos. So a couple days ago I banned 3 accounts because I just got tired of their toxic crap. They were people who these were like fictional names or people who did exist, but it wasn't the person. And when I decided to ban them, I thought, hey, that's gonna be it. Now the problem is that when you decide to ban people for whatever reason, some people they pop up and they make new accounts, and I can tell when they make new accounts because of certain things. Now, I've been thinking to myself, I said, man, some people they just don't have a life. It's like if you get banned on accounts and I'm telling you like, hey, live your own life, be don't just like spend your time just hating on me kind of thing. And it falls on deaf ears. I kind of realize that sometimes talking to these people and telling them, hey, just like don't be such a hateful person. Like, it's not worth it. There's no way to reason with them. And this is the reason why I've decided, after thinking about it overnight, that I'm going to just start banning people a lot more faster. And I'm not talking about people who are constructive. I'm talking about people where obviously they're saying things just to get under my skin. This is something that's very important for anybody to do. And I suggest that you guys do this not only if you're a YouTuber, but also in your personal life. I tend to be quite good at this in my personal life. Yeah. So what had happened was is that I had made a stream and I decided to unlist that stream because I thought to myself, hey, I don't want to I don't want to draw attention to this. I don't want it to be like people going on here. Just, like, yeah, 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 or all these fake accounts and things like that. Because I understand that sometimes when people make a YouTube comment and people upvote it, people think, hey, this has to be, there's people who believe in it. I've seen it where people, they write a comment and then coincidentally they have one upvote, which means, in case you guys don't know, that person's probably upvoting their own comments. And yeah, when people make new accounts like that, it just makes me think, why are they putting their time and energy into my freaking small YouTube channel for whatever reason? I don't know. I have no idea. But I think sometimes people, they derive pleasure, immense pleasure, from trying to feel more morally superior than another person. They will ask things like, well, if someone was asking for money on a subway, why didn't you give them money? If they look like that they were drugged out, how can you be so sure? Did you do a drug test on them? And it's like, dude, do you think I don't know how a person on drugs looks like? Do you think that I can't, if someone I feel like is just kind of like eyes half open, kind of slurring things, does that seem like a person who's like mentally all there at that time? No, but people like holding on to this idea that they know the situation so much better than I do, even though they weren't there. It saddens me. It saddens me because it's like I see so much negativity and so much toxicity, and these people, they just get off on it for whatever reason. I think it's because they don't have happiness in their own life, and I know this is going to be triggering. In fact, what they had told me is they said that you talk about happiness, ha ha ha, she doesn't even know what happiness is. Happiness is a problem. It's like being cool. The more you think about it, the less will happen. I'm willing to say that I'm probably a lot more happier than this person, and I'll tell you why. It's because I don't spend my time tearing other people down. I'm making this video because I think it's very important that people be aware about people like this in their life. And the more mental energy that you waste on these people, and the more that you kind of question your own reality, it doesn't do you any favors. For instance, right? People will be out there saying, "Oh, Erica, you should have just given her your credit card. Or you shouldn't, never mind, you don't have any cash. Why didn't you go ahead and give her your coat? Why didn't you just buy another coat?" It's like, no. Even if I give money, what good will that do? Honestly, it doesn't do much because, okay, let's say I give them $1. I can pat myself on the back for giving someone $1. I've given people money before, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that Giving $1 doesn't do much at all. What people need is services. They need housing. They need food. They need shelter. They don't just need one single dollar. Do you guys know how expensive groceries is nowadays? $1 doesn't get you much. I know this because I know the grocery bill, and if I go into a store, maybe I can buy a bottle of water for $1. But $1 isn't enough to sustain needs. See? And that's why I believe that homelessness is a bigger problem. So if someone wants to pin it down on me and make it sound like, you are not helping the situation, Erica, how dare you kind of thing. It makes me roll my eyes because I have to ask myself, what is that person doing? What do they suggest I do? Go cold myself and then tell everybody how much of a martyr I am and how, I want to give away my clothes to keep someone else warm and then I have to buy my own clothes. Like, I don't do any of that self-sacrificing stuff. I know that sounds terrible for me to say it, but I think that most people wouldn't either, unless you're looking for publicity for a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised if people go on YouTube and they do that kind of stuff, but I'm not that kind of person. I think that I have every right to keep my winter jacket. I don't have to give my jacket away if it's cold in winter and I see someone, with their own coat kind of thing. See? It's so flawed. It's so flawed. But yeah, with that being said, it's like I recognize that there seems to be a prevalence in things, and I'm just going to start banning. I didn't want to do this, but it's like these people are kind of like a cancer, and I realize it. I've been advised in the past to just ban and ignore and that kind of stuff, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be so much easier for me to just do a ban and things like that rather than me spending time out trying to reason with people too long. It's sad, but what can I do about that kind of stuff, right? There's not much I can do. Nobody is asking me to what? Who is nobody asking me to? This is also one of the, I think, the reasons why you see people and they're kind of hesitant about sharing their own personal thoughts about things that can trigger other people. One of the things that trigger people, for instance, right, is thoughts about when I want to say it, but I kind of don't want to say it at the same time. But I think that people get irked when they feel that there's another person suffering and then they feel like someone else should do something about it. And if nobody does anything, or it's perceived that a person doesn't do anything right on the spot, then they get so mad. It's like, you gotta put yourself in that kind of situation. Again, like, what do you expect me to do? I don't have any cash on me. What should I do? I have to stay on the subway because I'm on a subway car. What do you want me to do? Give someone my credit card? Give them my handbag and say, here, sell this if you want. Like, that's stupid. That's so incredibly stupid, that kind of thinking. Oh, no. Don't be another, where is it? Didn't also thought that there was a nice lady walking down the street and saw a homeless freezing and decide to give her own coat, which you probably would never do. No, like, I don't believe that at all. It's kind of like throwing that kind of shade. It's like, why, you would never help out a homeless person. It's like, you don't know anything about me. You're just throwing shade at me. You see that kind of stuff? And then, yeah, so I got called, I got told that I must be jealous of this woman. I'm probably on more medication. I'm probably on medication, which I'm not. Xanax, Zoloft, Adderall, Prozac, all that stuff. And it's like, and here's the funny thing. Don't point your finger on poor people in need when you're poor yourself, and don't spread negativity. It's like, do you know how much money I have? Do you? Like, no, you don't. But it makes people feel powerful when they say these kind of things. And that's why when I read this kind of language, it kind of makes me think to myself, whoever wrote this comment, they want to get a rise out of me, and they want to do it in a way that it makes me feel really bad. Like, oh, okay, well, I must be on medication, multiple medications, which I'm not. I must be, a terrible person because I didn't help this uh, homeless woman in the cold who was asking for money in the subway. I said it in that stream and I'll say it again. There are people who go on the subway asking for money, and they're constantly, there are services that people need to utilize. I'm not saying these services are perfect, but you're going to get more success if you get, let's say, affordable housing or low income housing than relying on $1 or $2 at a time. There are free fridges here, there's food distribution, there's food pantries. I know because I've helped out with them. So for someone to make it sound like the burden is on me to help these people, and how dare you didn't help this woman, you just commented about it. It's sad, that kind of stuff. And then, all this stuff. And then they said, it's just like all that thing. So I can't change a person's thinking like this. And they're going to continue thinking whatever they want to think. And that's their right, I'm going to just mind my own business, or I'm going to try to mind my own business in this. But it's kind of difficult sometimes when people share their opinion about me, and I just want to be like, dude, just get into this whole conversation. But at the end of the day, these people have their mind fixed. And toxic people, from what I find, is that they have something lacking in their own life. And they find it easier to just throw shade at another person for whatever reason and just tear them down and just rip them apart, and then kind of look at their own life. The most successful people that I've known, they don't waste their time on this kind of stuff. There's people that I see on YouTube that I don't think it's, the greatest person, or sometimes I just kind of, I don't hate anybody on YouTube, let's put it that way. I'm concerned about a few people, but I don't draw out long comments, long hateful comments about people. I have other things that I feel like is a better use of my time, like working on myself, than writing hateful comments about a person that I don't know. Oh, it's insensitive how you assume the homeless person was on drugs. Leads to homelessness, not drugs. Okay, so you're right. Maybe she wasn't on drugs. Maybe she had mental health issues. Either way, it looks like she was drugged up in some way, okay? So I'm sorry for talking about it, but I'm not also going to go and say, like, oh, hey, I don't think that should be the focus here. I think sometimes it's like when you see a person and you just kind of think that they're like out of it, you kind of think to yourself, like, hey, yeah, this person needs to get some sort of help. I'm not saying that person should stay on the streets. And nobody, people who disagree with me is not a toxic person, but it's the way that it comes off on. You see? That's the most important thing. But I also do know that how I am is triggering people as well. And it makes me a little sad. It makes me a little sad with the way that I feel like I'm improving my life, and like it just seems like people are just more hateful now for whatever reason. Either way, drug use, mental illness, the person wasn't 100%. And instead of being on a subway asking for money, they should have had services. I know her story enough that she should be seeking services. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm insensitive. But it's true. There was a person in Hawaii. It was a person who was always asking for money, in a sense. And the person was like completely out of it. And I don't say that in a disparaging way. I just say that in a very honest way. Many people knew about this person. Now, this person had a daughter, and the daughter was trying to find her father, which ended up being this homeless person. Now, the father, who was mentally ill, clearly looked like he was drugged out. He didn't seek help until he got a heart attack, if I remember correctly. Then he got admitted to a hospital, right, against his will, because he had a heart attack, and then he got medication. Now, from what I've seen online, it's been years since I saw the article, he's integrated back into society. His daughter got to step in and help him out and things like that. But it wasn't until he got help, and it wasn't until everything that was wrong with him was made under control because of what I believe to be medication. No, but that's much better. Look, low-income housing is a much better option to go for than relying on $1 or $2 at a time. Tell me I'm wrong here. Tell me I'm wrong. You cannot tell me if I give someone $5, it's going to help them get housing. No, the answer to that is affordable low-income housing. There needs to be more about it. I'm extremely for more affordable housing. I think there needs to be more about it, because it's like I see the prices of housing and it just spirals out of control. But it has to be a combination of services as well as housing. That's how you transition people off the streets into being back on their feet. But yeah, it makes people uncomfortable, right? There's food pantries available. There's food pantries available. There's community kitchens available, that kind of thing. Feeding a person is not enough. You can also apply for things like food stamps. You can apply for, money to help you. And here's the other thing too, right? Like, if you are truly and I know people are going to get triggered by this, but I'll say it anyway. If you are truly in a situation where you need food, you'll find a way to get food. No, you sound out of touch, Jake. You sound like I'm telling you what the solution is, and you're just making it sound like, you just live such a privileged life. Look, I've looked into this stuff. What more do you suggest? Do you suggest that we just give people free housing and free food? And then, like, it's going to come at a cost, right? So that's why it has to be affordable housing. And that's a totally separate thing. People needing clothes for a job interview, you can get that from shelters. Shelters have clothes accessible. I think what people, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? It almost sounds like people want the homeless situation to go away, but people aren't able to give solutions, concrete solutions, except, say, a person needs to be fed, a person needs to be housed. There needs to be things put in place to ensure that the person has stability, not just temporary housing in terms of like, okay, you can stay here overnight, but it needs to be a place that someone can stay for 24 hours a day if they want to. Well, I don't have a mental illness. I'll tell you that straight up. I don't walk around as if there's something wrong with me. So yeah, I will say straight up that in that situation, yes, I feel like I'm more in control of my life than that person. No, it's true. It's true. Like, it's, you wanted me to talk about it. I'll talk about it. You need to get help for those kind of things, right? How you do it. You make sure that that person is well fed. You make sure that if there's any sort of mental issues with them, they get it treated. And then that way they can live a full life. If they need medication, they need to have access to it. There are certain things out there that need treatment. Oh, Jake. I'm saying that she needs medication if she needs it. She needs food. She needs shelter. So if you're going to criticize me for being toxic in that way and stating something that I observed, then I'll take the toxicity. But I think she needs to get help. She should be in a home, a war home. She should have food in her refrigerator for her to eat. And I'm not wishing her ill or anything like that, but I'm saying that services help with this. You cannot rely on one person or a few people to just bring someone out of the situation. This is a systemic problem. There are a lot of homeless in New York. So tell me what the solution is, Jake. You can call me toxic for stating my observations, and I'll take it. I'll take it. But this person needs to get services. And I do know on the MTA, there were people who were intaking people, trying to get them into shelters. Now, how the state of New York shelters is, from what I hear, is not that great. You also cannot help a person unless they want to require assistance. So for instance, right, Hawaii has a homeless problem. There are people who say just go into a shelter, but people don't want to go into the shelters because of issues like bed bug issues. Sometimes people have pets, they can't bring their pets in, so they refuse it. How do we like make people get into housing or shelters? You can't. They have to want to go there themselves. So what had happened was this: there was a woman on a subway, right? She was on the subway, and I had mentioned that she looked like she was on something. Sure, like her eyes were half open, she was kind of slurring and that kind of stuff. She was asking people for money. And if you're familiar with New York, you hear this a lot. You hear people say, oh, I need money and da 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 da, and please help me. And some people, like, you see them all the time. There are people where I give them money, I go on another subway, then the same people ask me for money again because we transferred onto the same train. Yes. There are people who stay in certain like high traffic areas of New York City, staying in front of one store, asking people, can you give me money? And I've done streams about it. There was this one person, this is an old stream I think I did back in 2020 or 2021. This person had asked me for money, and we were in front of a Two Bros Pizza. It's like a dollar pizza place. I decided to go and get them food. They said, oh, ma'am, may I please have $3 so I can buy pizza and a drink? And I said, okay, yeah, sure. I'll buy it for you. And then they did not want me to buy them the food. They wanted me to give them the cash. And I said, well, wait, what's the big deal? You're telling me you want to buy, I think it was 2 slices of pizza and a drink for $3. I will come with you to buy you the food. And they said, I would prefer if you just gave me the cash, and I realized at that point they just wanted money from me. They didn't want the food. They just wanted the cash. And that was one of those times where it's like I had discussions with people afterwards about it, people who live in New York, right? Some people who live in New York, who are familiar with the homeless, and they say, yeah, sometimes people, they ask you for food, but they don't really want the food. They rather have the money associated with it. And some people, they they make a lot of money asking for money. And you don't have to report it to the IRS for sure, right? You guys have seen that. Some people, I think I heard, they can rack up to $300 a day just begging for streets in New York City. And that's something that really stands out to me. Now, I have met homeless people in New York City, like genuinely homeless people. And then I talk to them sometimes, I haven't come across in conversation with one in a while. But I remember when I spoke to them, they said, oh, yeah, they know where to go if they need food. Sometimes certain stores, they know the managers, and the managers just give them food at the end of the day, and they're really appreciative of it. So when people tell me, right, when people say, like, hey, why don't you give money to a person on a subway? They could be starving. I know that there's options for a person to get food, for sure. Again, there's food pantries, there's shelters, there's places that do food distribution in New York City. There's community fridges as well. And that's the thing. You hear about these sob stories, and yeah, people will give me crap about this kind of stuff and be like, you don't want to help the homeless, Erica. And I say to that, like, what makes you think that? Just because I didn't give money to a person, just because I talk about a person on a subway who was asking for money and they look like they were out of it, that's not the only person in New York. There are people where you walk on the sidewalks of New York City and they'll ask you, right? There was this woman, and I shared it in a stream. She said she was like a couple months pregnant. I couldn't verify that or not, of course. She said she was a couple months pregnant. She had a friend who would house her, but she needed like $10 that night for her friend to like allow her in or feed her. And I said I didn't have cash, and she said, oh, that's all right. You can just go to the CVS across the street and buy a $10 or $25 Visa prepaid gift card, and my friend will accept it. That's what she told me. So when people make all these judgments, it's like they make it sound, I think they kind of think that, oh, Erica has never ever spoken to a homeless person before. She's never like, all they want is just food. It's like they don't want just food. Some of them, they want more than that. I've seen people offer food to the homeless person, and they said, oh, I need money to buy food. Someone offers them food. Do you know what they do? They refuse to accept it. They said, I don't want food. I want cash. I've heard about it. I've seen it. Yeah, so see Jake saying, like, I've never spoken to a homeless person before, but then you're also criticizing me about that. That tells me a lot, Jake. I've spoken to a homeless person. I've interacted with a homeless person. I've given them food. I've given them cash in the past. And I have a policy where I don't feel comfortable giving cash to a homeless person anymore. I don't mind giving them food, but I don't want to give them cash because I think to them myself, like, they need more than just $1 or $2. So there are resources available. You cannot just go and you can't just like think like, hey, if I give $1, this is going to change a person's life around. The dollar is not sustainable. There's a ton of homeless people in New York. There's like people in the subways asking for money. They're always, some people are always there. They always have like the same spiel too. They always say things like, hey, I like include sob story, And then things like, oh, I need money so I can buy food, and, help me out as much as you can. And it's like the standard variation. Some people give them money, some people don't give them money. And then as soon as they get money, do you know what they do? They ask another person for money. Yes. They'll go down the line of the subway asking people for money. They get $1. They'll say thank you. Then they'll go and they'll walk past another person, collect another $1, and all that kind of thing. So I had that was a toxic that what was a toxic story about? I forgot what the toxic story was about. I don't know which toxic story, but yeah, I was commenting about a homeless woman on the subway yesterday, and then she was asking for money, and then I looked at her, right, and then I noticed that she had a mink fur coat. Now I mentioned in that stream, like, I'm very familiar with how mink is, right? I know that was a real coat, and I thought to myself, you know, I don't think she would get that much money from people, because if people realize that she had a mink fur coat, they might think like, hey, this is an expensive coat, let's not give her money. And it made me kind of think back on PETA, because PETA's saying that they want to donate um, fur coats to the homeless, but I kind of thought to myself that with the way society thinks about fur, it actually could be detrimental to a person asking for money if they're wearing a fur coat, because people would say, why don't you pawn it off instead? The answer is that fur is a lot more insulating than the synthetics. So if you're out there in the New York winter, you're going to be better off insulated with a mink fur coat than some, cotton kind of jacket or so. But it was just kind of, kind of sad, because it's like, I thought to myself, if a person is asking for money and they got that coat donated to them, either from a shelter or, maybe an individual, who knows, right? It's kind of works against them. But the truth is that that's a natural material. It's just that society, we've placed such a big value on fur that, yeah, it's like you don't think that a homeless person should have fur. So I was talking about that, and I said, yeah, the only downside too is that if you have a fur coat and it gets drenched by the rain, I don't know how it holds up, because I know sometimes it gets really heavy in the rain, and I think it dries okay, but I'm not too sure. I just hope it doesn't smell, because like I said, I never had a fully drenched coat. So I don't know if it starts smelling like a wet dog or a wet cat. Like, for instance, if Oreo, right? If Oreo takes a shower, he smells terrible afterwards. So those are the kind of things that I was just thinking about, and that's why I made that stream. I said that I hope it keeps her warm. I hope that it doesn't rain, because I don't know how, I don't want her walking around with something that smells like a wet cat. Um, but yeah. But yeah, some people, they got triggered by me about the way I described the woman. And the reason why I made that stream was just to talk about just something that I heard about with PETA, like giving away fur coats. And it's just like, you kind of think about it and you think to yourself, like, if you're asking for money, I don't think people are willing to donate. I think you have less of a chance of people donating if they see someone in a fur coat, just because, people perceive fur coats to be very expensive or pricey. And yeah, I think that it just brought out some people who just made these accusations about me, and yeah, deluded sociopath being one. It's like, oh jeez. So yeah, I'm curious to see, because people will make all kinds of judgments based about, if I talk about, let's say, a homeless person and I choose not to give them money. um, it's just, what can I say? It's like, I think people will think to themselves, like, if you see a homeless person, you should help them. You should try and do something for them. But what I realize is like, there's only so much you can do. It's so much better for them to have steady access to food or shelter, or, try and if you're coming from a shelter, I'm sure that they're going to hook you up with like food stamps or food, or direct you to resources. Uh, it's not like they're going to tell you to starve. Again, though, right? If you are really truly hungry, you will find a way to get food. And I mentioned there's homeless people in New York where they just wait in front of stores when they close, and then let's say they're at a sandwich place, and then they'll just get sandwiches either from the trash bags or from the managers. And this is not me talking about it in a disparaging way. This is what people do. Freegans do this kind of stuff. And yeah, but it just, like, to me, seeing a homeless person in a fur coat, like, I understand, fur is warming, but if you're asking for money from people, in my opinion, you're going to get less money from people, because people will notice the mink fur coat before they see the homeless person. They're going to say, do you really need money from me if you have a fur coat? So, yeah, I'll take that kind of criticism. But what I don't like is, I don't like people just kind of making it sound like I don't care about the homeless at all. I feel bad for them, but as an individual, I can't do much. They need more than my $1. They need services. This is how you can help homelessness. It's not just saying people should do more. It's like, there needs to be more agencies out there. What's Bing chilling? Yeah, he's just hate watching, It's like, he's saying all this stuff like, what did he say? This is exactly what they wrote, okay? So you're jealous that a homeless person wears a fur coat and calling her a drug addict because she looks like she's on substance. Did you have her blood test? Didn't occur to you maybe she didn't sleep for days and is hungry and she can't think straight and is showing on her face? Didn't think that there was a nice lady walking down the street and saw a homeless freezing and decided to give her own coat, which you probably would never do. The woman said she came from a shelter, so that means that she slept there. Most likely she had food there. Shelters do provide food, right? This person didn't think about that. So don't be another negative, presumptuous person on YouTube. Not only did you do nothing to help her, but you decide to talk behind her back. I thought Asian people don't talk behind people's back and stuff like that. Funny how crazy sees crazy everywhere except on the mirror. No offense. Seeing how you try to give a good picture of yourself on old videos, that you don't get jealous, blah, blah, blah. Now you're the jealous one saying one thing, and that you're a deluded sociopath, unfortunately, and probably on more drugs than you call meds. Xanax, Zoloft, Adderall, Prozac, probably. Don't point your finger on poor people in need next time when you're poor yourself, and don't spread negativity. And I read, I wrote something along the lines of, I replied back to them, and I said, another negative and toxic person, I hope you find happiness in your life. All you're doing is spreading hatred. I recognize it. I wish you work on yourself instead of focusing so much on mine. And their reply was, and look at her, she talks about negativity and calling me toxic. Ha 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 ha. The funny thing about deluded sociopaths is that they believe their own BS, my friends. Asian people are very nice. This one here doesn't represent them. I've traveled to Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan. These people don't even look at you. Everyone's minding their own business and don't talk on people's back. She talks about happiness. Ha ha ha. She doesn't even know what happiness is. Happiness is a problem. It's like being cool. The more you think about it, the less it'll happen. I actually disagree with that. I think happiness is, you actually have to work towards it. You can't just like not think about it. People should think about their happiness, and they should try to make steps to be happier. You see, like, for instance, right? If you are not happy because you're always, you can't find your keys, you got to figure out like a system to put your keys in a certain place, so that way you're less stressed out when it comes to getting out the door. You know exactly where your keys are. See? Yeah, so this is the reason why I just unlisted that video, because I thought to myself, I don't want people seeing this stuff. Like, this is just like so toxic. You know what, Pocket? Like, for me, the reason why I think fur is more insulating, it's because the wind doesn't go through it. You know, I've had wool coats, I've had synthetic coats. I feel like the wind kind of goes through them, but for a fur, because it's so thick, I don't. I find that it's more insulating. Maybe I just don't have really like super good synthetics, but the synthetics that I've had, it's just I felt like the wind just went. Whoosh. That's why I didn't like it. You know, that's why I gave away all my synthetic jackets, and then now all the winter jackets I have are wool or down or fur. That's it. Yeah, what I would want for PETA to do is yeah, I mean, like I said, right? You got people who will just say this kind of stuff, and then they'll just put in things like, you must be a deluded social, you must be on like Xanax and Prolof and things like that. I'm like, why are you taking your time out to just like rile yourself up about these kind of comments? Like, you know that takes mental energy to write that stuff out. And what can I say? But what I have realized in the last few days is, even if you block these people, they're just going to continue back and make new accounts. And then they're going to say, yeah, look at her. You know, she's so toxic. She hates the poor people, or blah, 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 blah. And it's just, yeah, but I know, right? It's not just for in my life. I know there must be people in your life, or you guys had people in your life, and they just dislike you. You know, they just go for like such a visceral kind of response. And you're like, whoa, why do you dislike me so much? And for whatever reason, they're just not, they just have such like a, like over the top reaction. You see? It's like, okay, I can understand if you want to talk about it, but just like going off on all these things, right? It's like, it takes, like I said, it's a lot of energy. Yeah. So, yeah, but Fred, they're gonna come up. It's gonna be like whack a mole. You whack one down, and like two more pop up. And then they make accounts, and then they'll like their own stuff too. I see it. It's like, okay, and they're making all these accounts, and they're like, okay, I gotta like it, I gotta like it, I gotta like it. And then it's like they give credibility to themselves. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. It's like, you know what the thing is though, Shua, those people, they want their voice to be heard. They feel pleasure from saying these kind of things, and what they do is that they just if you silence them, they take it in such a they take it so personally. They're like, how dare you ban my account, I'm gonna make another account, I'll show you. And I fully expect this person to just go off on the deep end, and then if I get these like long hateful comments from an account, I'll just be like, I kind of think I know who this is coming from. Yeah. I really hope, I really hope that there's more affordable housing. I think we do have enough services in terms of like food pantries and food stamps and community fridges here in New York to help people out, but the housing situation is what's absolutely killer. People are getting priced out, not just in New York, but around the country as well. And yeah, it's just, I don't know what the answer is, except that I don't think government subsidies for current housing is going to solve the issue. Because like, let's say if the government gives like a $2,000 voucher so for people to get housing, it's going to encourage, I think, the housing market to go up, because people would say, oh well, if I have an apartment and the government gives people $2,000 for their apartment, then that means I should probably charge at least $2,000, right? Get the full money's worth. But yeah, it's like, it seems so straightforward, but it's complicated at the same time. I think that's the only solution, really, affordable housing. Oh, thanks, Jay-Z. But that's a huge pandemic. We can't talk about this kind of stuff, and our discussions aren't going to come to solutions outside of that, I think. Nah, you know why? People do these kind of things because it just makes them feel like they're powerful. Like, and this is why I said, I stand by my statement. I said, I don't think that person who left the comment is in a happy place. They might think that they're in a happy place, but truly, if you're happy with yourself, you're not going to waste your time throwing shade on someone else. You're going to say, they suck, move on, oh, I don't agree, move on. Especially if you don't, especially it's like, why waste all that mental energy to write such a long comment? And I encourage you guys to kind of do the same thing. Like, don't don't be that person on the internet who writes this like long spiel of angry stuff, um, directed specifically at a person, because it's like, once you start saying things like, oh, you're on all these medications, it not only makes you look like a fool if they're not on those medications, but it actually harms people who should be on those medications. People who should be on, um, hold on. Oh crap, hold on. One moment. Yeah, so no, someone wanted to pick up a bunch of jackets for me, but I gave them away. So yeah, they messaged me and they said, "Oh, I told them what I have available," and they said the jackets that I have available is not gonna fit them, so I'm gonna have to give them away elsewhere. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know what the answer is, and let's go on and let's talk about this, right? What is the answer to ending homelessness besides what I said? Affordable low income housing, ideally fixed rate. We already have that in New York, though. I think that's called subsidized housing, something like that. Rent controlled, yeah, that's the word. I remember I came across this one person, and they're living in a rent controlled apartment. They lived in it for a number of years, and they said their landlord is so agitated with them because they want them to get out, so they can rent out the apartment for much higher. I don't know the whole details behind it, but yeah, this person, they live very modestly and they're extremely giving. This person is probably one of the most generous people that I've ever met in New York. They buy a whole bunch of like food. They pay for it out of their own pocket from what I pick up. And for a number of years, I think it's been over 5 years, they've always just donated the food out to the poor for free. They buy their own containers, they buy their own supplies, and it's like, it's nice when you see people, if if they're allowed to get, let's say, affordable housing, they use the money, some of the money that they have, to help make the community a better place. So I think this person is very thankful that they have a rent controlled place. They're up there in age, and they try to make the world a better place. They don't have to do it. I've seen them, they drive a long distance. They spend hours cooking food. They drive a long distance. They give away the food for free Sometimes people just leave it out on the sidewalk. They just throw it away because they don't want that vegetarian food. And I see, I hear them, you know, talk about like how it makes them a little sad when they spend all this time making the food and putting it into containers and people just throw it away. They just discard it. But yeah, there are some really good people out there in New York, and I think that with rent controlled housing, right, it allows people to be more charitable if they have extra funds, because that way they're not living so lean. I feel bad for like the people who are aging, especially, limited incomes. I think people, they saved up money for retirement, but they didn't anticipate housing being so expensive. And one of the saddest things I've spoken about is, and I've noticed is that when I see homeless individuals on the street and they're like 70, 80 years old, that's absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, Jack brings up a good point. Yeah, we should try our best to treat the internet like real life because it is real life. The people we talk to are real. I don't think people should live double lives on the internet. I don't think they should be all like, oh, you suck. Go off on this whole thing where they feel like an all powerful being, and then, they feel like they're telling people off, and then in person, like if someone pushes them, they'll be like, oh, they'll be like a little field mouse. People need to have their internet persona, I feel like, line up with their real life persona. I think it's good for the mental health. I don't think people should use the internet as one of those things where they can be an anonymous person that they don't have the power to be like that in real life. You see what I'm talking about? I don't think, and I think that's why sometimes people get into like, making online personas, because they feel like they can't do it in real life for whatever reason, but on the internet they can be whoever they want to be. They can be this, badass and things like that. And I'm not talking about content creators, right? Because I see, like, those people, I see them seeing their YouTube channel as a business. What I'm talking about is the people who go on the YouTube comments and, they try to make a, I don't know, king, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. Or, all powerful warrior kind of thing. And, yeah, I wish people just, I hope people, how they are on the internet is similar to how they are in real life. Yeah. Or you see, oh yeah, talking about catfishes, right? This is a totally turning into an Erica stream. You see people where it's like they use a celebrity's photo, and then, you heard about that one person, they pretended they were Bow Wow, Lil Bow Wow, the rapper. They pretended that they were them, and then they went on an online dating website. They met this woman, and then the woman was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Are you really Bow Wow?" And they said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll take care of you." Turns out that because they wanted to keep up the Bow Wow persona, they actually wired the woman $10,000. And yeah, there was some kind of catfish show, and then they found out that the woman who wired the $10,000, right? The woman who accepted the $10,000 thinking it was Bow Wow, she had no idea that there was a woman behind that persona. So it was a woman who fell for another woman pretending to be a guy. And when the truth came out, the woman who accepted the money was not interested, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so $10,000. Can you imagine it? Imagine that shocker. That's why I think it's so dangerous for people to pretend to be celebrities. Like, like big Hollywood celebrities. It's one of the most detrimental stuff. Because if people say, like, oh, I don't know, give me a celebrity, Matt Damon or something like that, or then people will be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm talking to Matt Damon. He's on Match.com. Oh, Matt, my, I don't know, my dog needs some surgery. Can you give me some money? And then the person who's posing as Matt Damon, right, they might feel obligated to give the money if they want to keep up the Matt Damon persona. So they'll be like, yeah, no problem. I can definitely wire you the money for your dog's surgery. Oh yeah, is that was whatever happened to that? I remember he had the stacks of like $40,000, right? Is he really broke? I don't know if he's really broke. You know who I heard had financial hardship though? Sean Kingston. You know, the beautiful girls guy. Oh, that was so embarrassing about him. You guys can read up about Sean Kingston later on, but man, these rappers, some of these people, these celebrities, they're so big on showing how financially savvy they are, and then they go broke, and it's just like, oh, what's the point about it? People don't buy records just because you got some iced out bling on your neck. They buy your music because they like your music. So yeah, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna and 50 Cent is not broke. I think 50 Cent is broke. He filed for company bankruptcy, but it wasn't personal bankruptcy, if I remember correctly. He made a really good investment for vitamin water, if I remember correctly. Like that was really something, and I like seeing celebrities become successful entrepreneurs or very very savvy venture capitalists. I think Ashton Kutcher is a venture capitalist. Even like Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton, as much as people laugh about her, she's very rich. She's really made herself into a brand. So many products. Mm. Oh my god, I gotta find that picture of Bow Wow being in a commercial. Oh man, yeah. But yeah, I love it. I love it when people who are, let's say, actor or singer, they get off and they make savvy investments. It makes me very happy because I think to myself, the people who look up to these people, right? Hopefully they pick up something. Hopefully they think about investing themselves. I'm not saying people should be everyone can be a venture capitalist, but what I'm saying is that think about investing their money. Just because you're a singer doesn't mean that you just have to be touring all the time. And yeah. So I think 50 Cent, and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but he was one of those people that people were kind of surprised by it. They were like, oh wow, I didn't know he had a vitamin water deal. And I think of him as one of the people that encouraged others to say, hey, don't bank your income being your longevity on being a singer or a rapper or a movie star. Try to have different income streams. So I don't know much about 50 Cents, but his business acumen in that regard, I do respect a lot, and I do think it was inspirational to a number of people. Yeah. I mean, like, let's talk about it. A lot of these like superstars, they really branched out. Like Diddy, he had his Sean John fragrance, right? I think he had a line too. Um, and what else? Who else? Jay Z. Jay Z made his record label, or I think was a record label. I can't I know that Beyonce has her own clothing brand right now, I believe. Who else? Usher made has some fragrances. Let's see. Who else? Ludacris. He's been in several movies. Fast and Furious franchise. Let's see who else. Yeah, of course, 50 Cent and Oh, Diddy was Ciroc, right? Ciroc vodka. And let's see, is there anybody else that I'm forgetting off the top of my head? Yeah, I think that's it that I can remember. There might, I know, P Diddy, yeah, he didn't just like fade away. He made a freaking empire. Even though people aren't wearing, Sean John clothing that I see on the streets anymore, I have to say he made a killing. And then I think he was also invested into what, trying to make girl groups, right? Danity Kane, if I remember correctly. So, he uses his skills as trying to, I think he was managing them or he produced them, I can't remember. Yeah, see, so this is how it's like you can become bigger, and even though people might be all like, oh, what's Diddy doing? It's like they say, oh, is Diddy a has been, and maybe they don't realize that they're drinking Ciroc. Oh yeah, Rockaware. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, Rockaware. All this kind of thing, it's a big one. So people wonder, right? How do they still have so much money? It's because even though they stop making records, they're still focused on the business side. I don't think people are gonna stop drinking Ciroc anytime soon, even though people have stopped wearing Sean John clothing. I don't know. Does he still make clothing? I can't remember. I know Baby Fat. Oh, talking about that. Kimora Lee Simmons. Like she brought back Baby Fat. Remember that? That was Russell Simmons' ex-wife. Baby Fat I thought was really pretty. I like Baby Fat actually. I used to have like one or two pieces of clothing. I remember I read her book too, Fabulosity. Mmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Like even Usher, right? Usher made more money off of Bieber than he did um doing his own music, if I remember correctly. Like you guys hear about Usher, but yeah, he made big money off Justin Bieber. And then he also did collaborations with Bieber too, right? To try and propel him. What was that? Somebody to love. That was his collaboration with Bieber. Oh, Baby Fat, yeah. Wow. How do you? Yeah, it makes me sad when people win the lotto and then they blow it all. Like if I won the lotto, you know what I would do? Well, depending on what it was, I would buy property. I would invest a huge chunk of it, and yeah, I would make sure I would speak to a financial advisor and say, tell me how much I can spend every year to make my money last. I wouldn't say, okay, I have $5 million. I'm gonna spend 4.5 million. I'm gonna say, I need you to tell me how much I can comfortably spend in a year, and I gotta total all my cost. Because if they tell me like, oh, you have to live, you can buy this and this and this, but you have to live within $50,000 a year, I would say, okay, I'll make sure I stay by that budget. Yeah, people buy the yachts and they buy all this expensive stuff and mansions, and they don't realize the upkeep on this stuff. Yeah, some places do, some places don't. I know if I ever won the lottery, of course, right, smart thing to do is just be anonymous. Second thing to do is just, yeah, I guess disconnect your phones. Don't have a cell phone. Yeah. Imagine if you're that one person who made like 800 million. You know what I'm talking about? There was this one person who won the biggest lotto, Mega Millions. I forgot what it was, but two people. I think it was a couple. I wouldn't even know what to do with all that money. Like hypothetically, like what would you guys do if you had like 800 million, or let's say 600 million? What could you do with all that money? Oh gosh. That's just like crazy because you can buy any place. At $800 million, you can buy any property in like New York. If I won lotto, who would I tell? I'll tell my family. Yeah. If depending on how much I had, I would make sure my family was all taken care of. Every single family member that that I grew up with, I would make sure they all had money, depending on how much it was. So, like, if it's something like 100 million, right? You can definitely say, okay, I'm gonna give a chunk of it to my family members, and then hopefully they're gonna be, set for life or close to being set for life. And then you buy a house, and then you can maybe buy an apartment building, rent it out, that kind of stuff. All that thing, right? You can make a dynasty, truly. I would implore you guys, like, if you guys ever came across a financial windfall, donate money anonymously. And that's it. I think I would just have, depending on if I won the lottery, I would have a couple houses, a couple apartments, maybe one or two. That's it. 2, 3, I don't know. Make sure I have enough money for my loved ones. Rest, tell them, hey, if anything happens, if you have to go to a care home, don't worry, I'll pay for it. That kind of stuff. But that's all dependent on how much money it is, right? And then that's the time where you probably would live in a gated community for your own safety. Like, we're talking super secure places. Like, you have a gate, you have security, because that way you don't have to worry about your home being burglarized or anything like that. But yeah, that would be my thinking. I don't know, but I just kind of think, yeah, if I ever came across a financial windfall like that and it was more than enough money that I needed, then I would share it with my family. But I would also give back to charity. I just would not do it under my name at all. I would not donate trying to just be like, I want people to know who I am. I think the beauty about donation sometimes is like when it's anonymous donation, you don't know how many people are behind it. Yeah, how about you guys? Like, what would you guys do? I imagine some of you guys would buy houses, investments. What else? I don't know. Stocks. Yeah, that's investments. Dream car. uh, you know what? Don't buy your dream car first would be my suggestion, because you can't live in your car, right? Buy an apartment, buy a house first, and then make sure you can afford the maintenance or the upkeep, and then buy your car. Aw, Tony's so nice. Don't give all to your dad though, Just make sure that you have enough for yourself too. Yeah, I know some people, it's like I remember, I don't know if it's true or not, some guy sold his house just to buy an expensive car, and I was thinking, what the hell? Why would you do that? Like, you can't live in a car, you can't poop in your car. Why would you do that? I don't know if that was true. But it was floating around somewhere. Don't forget, if your car breaks down, right, you gotta fix it. And if it's an expensive car, it's gonna be expensive. Mm. Mm. Yeah, for me, I don't think I would ever want to have a super expensive car. I think that I would rather have a car that just like it's kind of low maintenance. It's not expensive. Yeah. And that's the other thing I want to talk about really quickly. Sometimes people, they get so hateful towards people if they have money, and they kind of think to themselves like, oh, look at that person, they have so much money, they must be so big-headed, and oh, that person was, living an elitist lifestyle. But I've known several people in my life, right? They're multimillionaires, and those people are extremely humble. I'm sure there's cocky millionaires too, multimillionaires, but they live a very low-key lifestyle. They, they've been working hard for a number of years. These people are in their like 50s, 60s or so, and they just want to make sure that they have enough to give to their spouses, their heirs, their future, whatever. And I think that I I think people should look at financial security in that way, not just a way to just say, look at me, I have this much money, but money is a resource to provide security to people and also make the world a better place. I think money is very important in that regard because you can do a number of things with money. Also, time and money and things like that. But I never fault a person just because they have a lot of money. And I don't feel angry towards a person because they have a lot of money, because chances are they had to work very hard for it, or if they inherited it, someone else in their family had to work very hard for it. So I don't see it as like if someone has a lot of money, it's like, oh, look at them, they just, they're just some spoiled person. They think that they're better than everybody else. It's like, yeah, financially they're better off than a lot of people, but from what I see in people, they don't let the money get to their head. Yeah, see? They pay it forward, My dad paid college expenses for his grandchildren. Yeah. And it's great, you set off people on the right foot. They can do whatever they want. They have more, they can pursue their passions. I've always, I've told you guys, like, if I had a child, I would make sure my kid had an investment portfolio. I would encourage my child to invest early on, even if it's something like $5 or $10 a month, because I want them to realize how money can grow for them. And I don't want my child, if I did have a child, to think that, to look at other people, see their investments grow, and then think to themselves, like, I can't do investments either. Yeah, well, people would say I worked for my money. Why should I give you the money, right? Like some people that I know, right? They have millions of dollars and they're still working. Why are they still working? Because they want to have more money. They don't have to work. And yet people can live off of a couple $1,000,000, but they choose to continue to work. Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls about investing is people think you have to be super smart to do it. It's if anything GME has taught me, it's like anybody can open up a Robinhood account. You just need a bank account, social security number, fill out some personal details, and you can do it yourself. But yeah, too many people, they just talk themselves out of it. They say, I'm not smart enough, I'm not wise enough, I'm not, I don't know what to do. It's like you just hook up a bank account, get out, let's say, $20, buy a fractional share of a company, hold or sell. That's it. And yeah, I think about it that way. I know someone who's close to me. I've known them for a number of years, and they have a sizable amount of money. And it's a combination because of family as well as putting work in. Now they took a break from working for a while, and they entered into a job. The job doesn't pay very well, but it covers their expenses. And I remember I had a conversation with them, and they told me, they said, if their job ever gives them too much trouble, they have no problem walking away because they don't need that money. And it got me thinking to myself. I thought, man, I want to be in that situation when I'm older. I want to be in that situation where I have a job, and if there's ever too much BS or something like that, I could just walk away and say, sayonara, I'm getting out of here. You know, I don't think having a job is a bad thing. I think people benefit from at least having a part-time job. But I think that people, right? It's like people are just, some people, they just kind of think to themselves, and they fall into this trap where they say, I make X amount of money. Let's say I make $3,000 a month. That means, and my expenses are $1,000 a month. That means I can spend $2,000 a month on myself and treat myself. And they go on through life, spending $2,000 a month, not really racking up any savings. And then they ask themselves where all their money went. And, it didn't disappear overnight. It just was a thing of habit. So, yeah, I've known people where they make a lot of money, more than enough, especially if it's a couple, but they're so bad at managing money. It's like, what? You don't have any savings? Like, how can you not have any savings? You see? And it's mind-blowing to me. It's just absolutely mind-blowing to me when people work so hard for their money and they blow their money, not in investments, not in savings, not in real estate, just living, day by day kind of thing. And, they have more than enough. If someone is making like a high six figures or, high 5 figures or high 6 figures or, over $100,000, they should be able to have a savings. But sometimes people don't. They just say, like, I'm just gonna use my money that I saved up to buy something expensive and treat myself, and all the money's gone. And then they fall into a trap if an emergency happens and then they need to pull out, let's say $10,000, and they don't have it. Yeah, thanks for that advice, Travis. Invest in what you know. If there's a product or service you really like, and start looking into the companies that produce it. Yeah, I personally like, not financial advice. You guys know I'm very much pro on tech. Yeah, and I know people like that, and it saddened me, because it's like I see people, they work so hard for their money. And then I think to myself, like, how come you guys are stressed out at the end of the month? Like, you make so much more than most people. But you look at it, and it's like they buy, and they just charge it and charge it and charge it. Yeah. And then if they have a certain lifestyle, they want to maintain it, right? It's like, for instance, let's say if I'm that kind of person where I'm always going and drinking expensive wine and eating expensive cheeses with the shattered curry, whatever kind of shatter or whatever that is, plate, the smoked meats. And I'm always going to wine bars. And then at the end of the month, I look at it and I'm like, man, I'm racking up so much money, going out to this wine bar all the time. It's, yes, you get happiness, but I think long-term happiness comes more from having financial security and living below your means than living at your means. This is why I'm always a big fan of living beneath your means. I've gotten a lot of criticism in my life. People say, why are you so cheap, Erica? Why don't you treat yourself more? And it's like, I do treat myself. I treat myself in terms of my investments. I see my money grow. It makes me happy. But yeah, that's all, like, that's a long-term game kind of thing. And yeah, so yeah, I know this has turned pretty ranty, and I know this stream has been quite kind of long, but yeah, I enjoy having this little chat with you guys, and I hope that you guys really think about taking out the toxic people in your life. YouTube comment section and things like that, don't get angry at them. Understand that there's probably something that they're hurting inside for whatever reason. Maybe they have some anger issues and you can't change it. You can guide them, but you can't force a person to change. And all you can do is just kind of, encourage them to be better, and then just remove yourself from it. Because if you spend too much time focusing on these people or letting them get under your skin, you're not focusing on finding your own true happiness, right? Because you're just too occupied with the words that these people say. And I don't think that person who left that comment, I don't think it's going to be the last comment I get. I think I'm going to be getting more comments. But before I go on the whole ban hammer kind of thing about certain things, not just people who disagree with me, okay? People who just kind of cross the line. I just wanted to just make this stream about it. Yeah, Eli, the computer guy, he gives really good advice. He's been more experienced with the YouTube stuff than I'd say a good chunk of people. And sometimes I listen to his streams, and it's pretty, it's quite insightful. When he talks about this kind of stuff, it's like he comes at it from experience. I don't know what there's so hateful about Eli, the computer guy, but sometimes he gets people who just get mad at what he says, and all content creators get this. Yeah, I might rewatch it. But just don't take it. Don't like listen to it, see if there's any truth in it, and then if you feel like it's getting you down, like ask yourself, do the people that you've known for a while, do they believe the same thing? Do the people that I've known for 30 years or so, do they think I'm a deluded sociopath? No. If they did, then they probably wouldn't be talking to me. Right? And so for you guys, I hope that you guys just kind of be mindful about this stuff, because I know sometimes if people go into life or YouTube and they get these kind of comments, it can really mess with their head. They could really be thinking like, man, does everybody think this about me? Do I really need to? Or just like stop, focus on what you want to do, focus on what you want, and just try and pursue the path that you find that would make you happy. And I don't think sometimes reading these comments make people very happy. Okay, guys, I gotta